Welcome back to the 2 Months Podcast presented by Kent Woodford. I am your host, Joshua Marshall, and we have another guest. He's joining us back again for the second time. This is just a summer check-in to see how things are going, and he's had a summer, as we've all seen, and getting a hole-in-one, and he's also doing a lot of great things and charitable stuff too, and we'll get to that as we get to the interview here. But we have Eric Francis from NHL Hockey on Rogers and Sportsnet.ca. Eric, how's it going?
I'm excellent, my man. Thank you. How's your summer going?
Yeah, no, not too bad. As we were just kind of connecting off recording, got to connect with some family members that I haven't seen in quite some time. So that's always a win. And then yeah, just continue to plug through the pod and work. And we were able to actually get to Calgary a couple of weeks ago and presented Luke Huska, Ryan Huska's kid, with a stick and an award. He won an award through our minor hockey program. So that was kind of nice, and got to meet up with
Awesome.
another girl that got her named award after Cassie Campbell Pascal. And as we know, Cassie has done such a great job in the game, and
Yeah,
her husband is a great assistant general manager for the Calgary Flames too. But so a lot of wins in terms of that and helping kids out, and that's something I know that means a lot to you too. And we're going to get to that. We'll finish on that note, but there's a lot of other great things to get to too. And I think Eric, I think we'll talk about where Craig Conroy's been able to do so far this offseason, some of the re-signings in Prospasol and Klapka. There's been some good ones in terms of that, and obviously Joel Hanley coming back to the organization as well too. But just your body of work of what Craig has been able to do so far to date this season.
yeah. A couple others that he signed. Justin Kirkland, very popular. He's fourth line center, but really big in the room. Matt Coronado's a big signing for the Calgary Flames. 7 years. That's some tidy bit of business for the Calgary Flames, and it's an Morgan Frost. He re-upped as well. So he's got a lot of the minor things kind of done. I think the Coronado thing's a major signing in a city where we're so used to seeing guys walk. The fact that he wants to be here and so many of these young guys are showing that same sort of desire to be part of this thing moving forward, that's really encouraging for the organization. But you asked about, his summer, and Conroy's had a pretty quiet summer. I mean, the Rasmus Anderson situation looms still and probably will continue to loom as we enter camp. I don't think that's great. A, that they're not getting the offers that they thought they were going to get, and B, the distraction that I think it poses if they open camp with him. But either way, they're waiting to get what they think is market value. But other than that, being quiet this summer, I think for Craig Conroy has actually been a good thing. And some people would say, well, what do you mean? They didn't make the playoffs and they didn't do anything. And I would say, look, I think patience has been his biggest virtue as a general manager. I think he continues to exhibit patience with Rasmus Anderson, with Connor Zari's situation. They still haven't signed him. But also with the big bag of cash that they've got sitting there, all that cap space, it's got to be so tempting for any general manager. As soon as you get money, you want to spend it. But they're waiting for that rainy day. That's that rainy day fund when this team really is a contender, in a couple of years' time, theoretically. That's when you make that big splash and you go out and you get the Mikko Rantanen or Mitch Marner or whoever the big fish might be on the open market. And it's not that easy because you got to make sure that they want to come here. But the first thing you have to have is that bag of cash to let that be a possibility. So I think it's good that he's been quiet because I think that this team is building something, they're moving in a very good direction.
Yeah, and we all know that there's been some off seasons, not to his doing, but just in the situations where there's been a lot of drama, a lot of conversations going on,
Yeah.
and obviously that hasn't been the case this go around. And yeah, I would say even somewhat last summer too has been that case. I know we make a lot about Rasmus Anderson and where he might go, and the question I might pose to you, and I'm just thinking it now as you're talking, is there any which way that he stays? And the reason why I ask that is you've been around this team for such a long time, dating back to before he was even in this organization. But my point is the culture of this organization is carried on from players to players to players, if not probably the best culture in the National Hockey League. And I'm biased, and you might be biased to that too. But I think Ras plays a big factor in the current culture that's there now. Is there a fear that when he's not there, and I say that too because I think you guys kind of talked about it, meaning you and Pat, on Friday on your show with Pat, that it's going to be awkward when we walk into that locker room and his stall's not there with his name on it. But or should we be prepared, or is there a way that maybe this kind of comes full circle and he does resign and he does the typical, maybe not the 8 years, but maybe it's a 6 year deal. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, it's always possible. I'll just say that it is a slight possibility because he's not unhappy here. He loves Calgary. He loves this organization. It's all he's ever known. And it's not like he's unhappy and wants to get out. Like I could name a couple guys who recently left this organization who couldn't wait to get out. They didn't like the city, they didn't like the weather, whatever the case was, they didn't like losing. And I get a lot of those things are not all that people don't love all that stuff. But at the end of the day, there is greener grass out there. And there's bigger bucks out there. And I think he owes it to himself to go out there and get that big dollar and to pick the market that he wants the most. And look, I love Calgary. I'm a proud Calgarian. I think it's the greatest city in the world. But if I was an NHLer and I had 31 other cities to pick from, not sure how high up on the list Calgary Flames would be. And I say that with all due respect,
Correct.
because it's a class organization. They're community minded. Like I don't mean to throw shade when I say it. The reality is players think that way, and they know that there are other cities with shinier rinks and better chances of winning the cup and bigger paychecks. So I don't think it'll damage the culture. No, I think it can be a distraction going into camp if he's with this team, and I do think he will be. At this point, it seems like that's going to be the case. They'll open the season with him in the lineup, but they have a leadership core group that is chiefly responsible for shaping this culture, and you've been in the room a lot. And it's 7 guys. And Ryan Lomberg's kind of been added to that list. Huberdeau, Uyghur. There's a really good core of guys that kind of take this culture and coddle it and show other guys the way it's got to be. Kadri's another one. That these guys, Blake Coleman, Michael Backlund. So, it's not like he's the only guy who shaped this culture and built what they have right now, but he's an emotional leader. And the day that he's not in that locker stall, a month into the season, 2 months into the season, it'll be jarring for the players, but everyone's expecting it. So I don't think it's going to be that big a deal when he does eventually leave.
Yeah, and I think a lot of, as we know, it's a part of the business. These things happen. Yeah, I very well said, and I think there's a lot of different good points to be made there, and I know that again, going back to you and Pat talking, like it was a really good interview that you guys did. So if you guys haven't listened to it, definitely check it out. But would Dallas be maybe that fit? And I think Dallas, in my opinion, would be that fit too, just because Jim Nill, we know that if he's interested in a player, he's patient too. And the patience, as you say, is a virtue with him. And obviously he probably wanted Rantanen, and until the right time came about, he got him. And then that could be the case for Rasmus Anderson there too. And they have the assets there too, don't they, in Dallas, Eric?
Well, they have the assets and they have the need, right? I mean, that's a hell of a franchise. I think they'll go on the next season as being one of the front runners for the Stanley Cup. I've thought that the last couple of years, and it hasn't happened, but getting to the Western Final 2 years in a row proves that they're a damn good team. It's a situation where on the right side where Rasmus Anderson plays, they just have a bit of a hole. It's really the only hole in the Dallas Stars organization, if you ask me. Now, I can say the same thing about Las Vegas. Now that Pietrangelo is not in the picture anymore, they have a massive hole on the right side, and I know they're very interested in Rasmus Anderson as well. Do they have the assets? How much are they willing to pay for a rental? Or in Vegas's case, maybe it's long-term, and then they'll pay a little bit more. Either way, neither one of those cities would surprise anyone if he ended up there.
Yeah. We'll shift gears, move over to Connor Zary, still unsigned as of today, and we'll see how that trend moves over the next few weeks and getting into that golf tournament and the captain skates and whatnot. But where do you think things stand with him in terms of also in the potential of him being a first line center too? I know that maybe that's something you're pretty bullish on, and that's a possibility. And the problem that they face is maybe an internal, because obviously Conroy is looking for someone at the center position. Maybe it is Zary, but obviously health is a big factor in that too. But where are you at with him and his development, and where things could go with him in a great ceiling that we could see possibly?
Yeah, I keep pointing to the Sam Bennett situation. The Calgary Flames drafted him 4th overall, and he was never a fit up the middle. He was never a fit anywhere, really, unless it was the playoffs. That's when we saw playoff Sam Bennett emerge, even in Calgary. But it was frustrating during the season. You couldn't figure out where he was best suited, up the middle, on the wing. Well, they got rid of him. Now he just finished the season as the best player in hockey theoretically, because he won playoff MVP. So I think that that lesson's learned. We have a center in our organization. We drafted Connor Zary as a center. And once they get him signed, and they will, I think they need to get right to business to making him a center right now. And I know they have, spots are all filled up the middle, but its competition is key for any organization, especially a growing one. And I think they have to give him every opportunity to start proving that he can be a, top 6, top 9 center in the National Hockey League. I think he can be. I think he will be. But I think they need to insist on it moving forward right now, no matter how tough the growing pains are involved with that, because they're looking all over the league to try and find a center, and they can't find one. People don't give up on them. Young, talented, hungry centers. He fits that bill, and they need to, make sure they get the most out of him because he's already in the organization.
Yeah, yeah, we'll definitely keep an eye on that, and that'll be interesting to see how that shapes out. I'm sure it'll hopefully get done. And do you think, to go back to him, do you think what we all saw with Jeremy Swayman last year, Eric, in terms of not signed, didn't attend training camp, and it kind of derailed the season? And we have seen this in past with other players too, but do you think more organizations are very shy away from trying to get it to that point where it's like, we got to get these guys in before camp starts? It's very key. Obviously that's a very easy for me question to ask, but in terms of just seeing the recipe that we've seen with Jeremy Swayman, where it kind of derailed not only his season, but the organization's season too. And I'm not trying to make Zary in the same boat as that. It's two different positions, but Zary is an important player for this team too, as you would say.
Yeah, like this GM, no GM in the league wants a player holding out. No player wants to hold out. I'd be stunned if it got to that point where he was a holdout to miss even one day of camp. I just don't think that it's in him to kind of make that sort of stance. I think at some point, both sides are going to kind of swallow hard, sign a deal that maybe neither's really comfortable with, because they just don't know what he is. I mean, I know he thinks he's a 20 goal, 50-point guy in the league. I think he is. That's a minimum that I think he can be. And I think the organization believes that too. But because it was such a lost season last year with the 2 injuries that he had, they don't really know or have numbers to kind of compare him to that make both sides happy. So they're in that gray area right now. So they'll find a number. It'll be a short-term deal.
Yeah.
Player will probably, at the end of the day, no matter what the deal is, I guarantee he's going to swallow hard and say, I'm going to show these guys with every practice and every game I play that they should have paid me more. And then my next deal, I'm going to more than make up for it.
All right. We'll finish up on that on the Flames. And obviously, we still got to see if Huska gets his extension. I'm sure that will be a no-brainer to get done at some point here. But
yeah,
in your thoughts, what's your thoughts of what he's been able to do, not only at the NHL level, but he's kind of checked all those boxes leading up to where he's gotten to now at this level. But today's coach, isn't he, Eric?
Yeah, he is. He's player-friendly coach. They love him. They respect him, but he's got a baseline that's not negotiable.
Yeah.
And, I think he's done a good job establishing that. And look, culture is largely under the, that's the coach's issue, to try and help form the culture. The GM plays a role, the players play a role. But this coach has been so inclusive. Like, he basically will always defer and give credit to the core leaders who have built the culture here. That's not always the case. The previous coach didn't care what the players wanted in terms, they didn't really have that much feedback. He's working with them, and I think it's helped strengthen the bond between the coach and the players, management. And I give him all the credit in the world. X's and O's wise, he's figured out they have to be a defensive first team. Look, they were at one point, they were last in scoring in the National Hockey League last year. I think they finished 4th or 5th last. That's still going to be a big issue this year, but to challenge for a playoff spot and be tied for the last playoff spot, despite being 4th last in goals last year, that says a lot about the coaching to me. Obviously, goaltending played a role too, but you have to cater to your strengths and try to cover your weaknesses. And I think he does a good job with that.
Yeah, he definitely does. Well, 2 more to get before we get you out. To move over to the Edmonton Oilers real quick, and just to get your quick thoughts on what Stan Bowman, Jeff Jackson have been able to do in terms of, bringing in some youthful players, but also maybe adding with a veteran player from overseas, David Tomasek, that we don't know a lot about, but there's an interesting name there to be had. But some of the young guys he's brought in, and obviously the big question, the extension for Connor McDavid as well too. What's your thoughts on the body of work so far for the Oilers this offseason?
Yeah, I love the move to get Ike Howard. I think that he's an exciting addition. I don't know if I'm putting too high expectations on him, but with the talent they already have, I feel like you could pluck him into the top 6 or top 9 right away.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not crazy to think that he could contribute. Maybe I'm wrong, but there's an excitement level there. Matt Savoie, to me, is one of the most exciting young players. I know he's undersized, but I still think that guy, on a skilled team already, I think he's just going to add tremendously this year. I think he'll be a full-time guy. And, those two young guys really excite me. So I don't think you really had to go, they got rid of some of the gray beards and Evander Kane and Corey Perry. And those young guys are going to have to step up and play not the same role, but important roles. The Connor McDavid thing, I feel like it'll get done. I'm looking 3 or 4 years. I think he's going to be fine to take a bit of a significant haircut from what he could demand, as the best player on the planet. But I'm confident that's going to get done. And, the one thing I just keep hearing from anyone who talks about the Oilers is always the goaltending. When are they going to address the goaltending? Can they address the goaltending? Will they address the goaltending? That seems to be the hottest topic when it comes to the Edmonton Oilers outside of your marketplace. So that hasn't changed. I feel like they're going to have to be creative if they're going to make, affect some significant change there. I thought Dan Vladar actually would have been a great fit there, to be honest. But either way, I mean, they just couldn't fit him in, and maybe there wasn't a desire to have him there. But that's the last kind of question mark, other than Connor McDavid, that I will have going into the season and even throughout the season. Do they still think at some point Stuart Skinner can get this done, or do they eventually have to go and move off of what's been one of their Achilles heels for a while?
Yeah, for sure. And then that's the kind of the elephant in the room question that does creep up a lot, and it's dominates social media too. So we'll finish up on a great note. Again, tip your cap to the amazing work that you do in the community of Calgary and giving back. And you have a very special event coming up on October 23rd in Calgary at Cowboys. Eric Francis Pigot Pizza, I believe that's what it's called. Correct me if I'm wrong, but can you let our listeners know about the event and then how they can get involved if they wish to attend as well?
Yeah, it's the Pizza Pigout. It's the 23rd annual. I started this silly little pizza party. Actually, it was almost 30 years ago. I took 5 years off at one point, but we've raised almost $1.5 million for Kids Sport Calgary and various other charities in town. And it's October 23rd. We just set the date. I appreciate you letting me kind of throw that out there, because we count on people to buy tickets, and they come and they can eat unlimited pizza from hundreds of pizzerias around town. They all bring their best pies, and you just meander in and out with all sorts of Flames players, Stampeders players, all sorts of Olympic athletes. You just kind of rubbing elbows with who's who of Calgary while eating the best pizza in town, and you always leave there finding your new favorite pizzeria, whether it's a restaurant or a pizzeria that delivers. And you're doing it all in the name of supporting Kids Sport Calgary. So it's our 30th anniversary for Kids Sport Calgary this year. So, we have a goal this year of raising $130,000 at the Pigout. It's at Cowboys, which is always a good time. Yeah. Tickets go on sale next week.
Okay.
And you go online, ericfrancispizzapigout.com, and you get all the information there. So thanks for giving me the platform.
No worries. And thanks for everything.
You got to come. You got to come this year.
I am going to come. I'm definitely going to come. I'm going to book it off work. I'll be at work tomorrow. I'm my last day off, so back at my regular job tomorrow. So the first thing I do when I get in, Eric, is I'm going to book that day off and be there and try to get some Zaws in me. So I'm a pepperoni guy. So I'm a picky eater, Eric. But,
what? Okay. Well, there's something for everybody.
Exactly.
People show up. Yeah. People show up. They're gluten. They can't have gluten. They can't have dairy.
Yeah.
We got something for everybody. So I need you to be one of my VIP, very important pigs.
Okay.
We'll talk.
I'll be out there for sure. And then once the tickets are available, we'll share that on our social media platforms for people to attend and help spread the word. But again, thanks for everything you do and putting smiles on kids' faces, Eric. It's one of the most incredible things. And, I got to see the great generosity and the genuine side of you. And I always look back at that moment we had watching the Masters in the dinner room at the rink this year and seeing Rory win it, and just the raw emotion that you had on your face. Sorry to embarrass you in that way, but it was just like it was amazing to see, and just in terms of like how much we support these athletes, that we, getting to the ultimate goal. And obviously a pretty something too, because we had Macklin Celebrini and Will Smith playing sewer ball, who left the sewer ball to come watch in the room there too.
Yeah.
They went a bit crazy as well too. So it was obviously a pretty special thing, and the heart you have for others, Eric, is tremendous. So thanks again, and we appreciate you joining us here on the podcast again too.
I appreciate those kind of words. You call anytime. Happy to come on and chat. And continued success with your website. I follow it, and I'm proud of you too. So keep up the great work.
Thanks, Eric.